everyone. I, Vinay Tripathi, Assistant Professor, School of Management Sciences, Varanasi, welcome you all to this glorious evening in the national webinar on role of technology in developing sustainable and resilient supply chains under COVID-19 scenario, a vision for self-reliant India. Before I proceed any further, there are a few important instructions that I would like to give to all the participants. Everyone should mute their microphones. Only the speakers for the webinar will be unmuted. Please do not present your screen at any point throughout the webinar. Please keep checking the chat box for important instructions. Please type your name, designation, and associated organization in the chat box. Question and answer session will be done at the end of the deliberations. Please write your questions only in the chat box with the name of the speaker you wish to address it. Your cooperation will be much appreciated. Despite the unprecedented steps and cumulative efforts undertaken by governments, businesses, and individuals, COVID-19 constitutes to rampage unchecked across the globe, causing not only loss of life, but also hitting businesses across industries and verticals. Supply chain disruptions have been reported due to coronavirus-related transportation restrictions. There is an urgent need to reduce dependency on physical labor across transportation, logistics, and warehousing. In this webinar, we will focus on how, under the current pandemic COVID-19 situation, the supply chains in India can become more sustainable and resilient through technology-driven initiatives, making India self-reliant, and how India can be future ready to tap every avenue and the new opportunities that may arise post COVID-19, minimizing its adverse impacts. We are very fortunate to have amongst us noted business leaders and academicians to throw some light on the given perspective. Our distinguished speakers include Dr. Rakesh Paras Singh, Chairman and Dean, Institute of Supply Chain Management, Demand Planning Academy, and Supply Chain Management Professionals Knowledge Group, Mumbai. Our other speaker, Dr. Niti Bhasin, Associate Professor for International Business, Department of Commerce, Delhi School of Economics, University of Delhi. Our third speaker, Shri Rajneesh Kumar, Chief Corporate Affairs Officer, Flipkart Group, Bangalore. And our final speaker, Shri Manoj Kumar Dubey, Director Finance, Container Corporation of India, New Delhi. Before we move further, I would request the webinar director, Professor P.N. Jha sir, the inspiration behind this webinar, to kindly welcome the eminent guest with his welcome address. Sir.
Good evening, friends, esteemed guest speakers and resource persons. Dr. Rakesh Paras Singh, Chairman and Dean, Institute of Supply Chain Management, Mumbai. Dr. Niti Bhasin, Associate Professor, Delhi School of Economics, University of Delhi. Sri Rajneesh Kumar, Chief Corporate Affairs Officer, Flipkart Group, Bangalore. And Sri Manoj Kumar Dubey, Director of Finance, Container Corporation of India Limited, New Delhi. My colleague and registrar, Mr. Sanjay Gupta, our Honorable Executive Secretary, Dr. M.P. Singh, who is expected to join us very shortly, the program coordinator and my colleague, Dr. Biresh Tripathi, my other colleagues directly associated with the conduction of the program, Dr. Amitabh Pandey and Dr. Karthikeya Singh, my all other administrative and academic colleagues, my very dear students who might be participating in this program, ladies and gentlemen. The School of Management Sciences, Varanasi, has often been organizing this kind of programs you might be having the occasion to participate or listen. This institution, as a center of excellence, provides education in the areas of MBA, PGDM, MCA, MCOM, BBA, BCA, BCom Plain and BCom Honors, and BA Mass Communication. The institution, which is housed in a very green and a kind of, arrogantly beautiful campus, is committed to provide one of the best possible kind of academic and intellectual nurturing of the stakeholders, and is equally particular to take care of its various social responsibilities and extension activities. Friends, School of Management, which is NAC A graded and has also got a very prestigious position on the continuum of top 50 B schools in India, has presently been passing through its silver jubilee year. This institution is having a very unique salience in as much as it has been regularly publishing 4 biannual journals, including one that is Scopus indexed. And we organize this kind of webinar, especially during this ill luck period, this COVID-19, off and on. Today, as a part of its social obligations, once again, the institution, through its IQAC, has been before you with today's program, which is, of course, on a very, I can say that it is more than a contemporary issue. The topic for today's webinar is role of technology in developing sustainable and resilient supply chains under COVID-19 scenario, a vision for self-reliant India. At this auspicious occasion, with great exuberance, I would like to extend a very tempestuous welcome to all the honorable guest speakers and all the listeners and participants. Friends, now this COVID-19 pandemic is also becoming older. Since the outbreak and its lingering stay for about 4 months with us now, you see that we have been a pervasive sufferer on almost all the various counts that relate to our lives and lifestyles. The things have been very badly disrupted and activities have reached almost to a halt. Having emerged from its epicenter, China, this deadly pandemic has spread with a heavy acceleration to take so far into its monstrous grip more than 180 countries, including India. Today, at the global level, we have been made to experience one of the most brutal global equity collapse since the Great Depression. The entire world economy is expected to incur a loss that might range from 77 to 347 billion US dollar. We Indians, our country India, in this new world economic order, we of course cannot afford to remain insulated. So we are also the equal sufferer on so many counts. You have seen that our entire social fabric has been torn, has been badly disturbed. The entire economy has been pushed to the verge of devastation. The cascading impact of this coronavirus, we are watching in the companies having reduced their operations. The production targets have been slashed down too much. The stock market have already fallen by more than 20%. Both the sides of the marketing equation have been almost dismantled. As per a very important statistics, more than 190 million people who remained employed, either as self-employed or under unorganized sectors, they are expected to have lost their livelihood. And of course, if this coronavirus further extends, the lockdown further extends, more people are likely to lose their jobs and livelihood. Presently, so far as our economy is concerned, we have already reached to a new historical low. Recently, a very acclaimed rating agency, CARE, has come out with its estimation that our GDP growth rate would remain 1.1% only in this financial year. We have reached to such a bang that now we have to weigh the importance of life versus livelihood. During these days, you have also witnessed and you would appreciate that two terms have become very, very common. Social distancing, number one, and herd immunity, number two. They actually stand at the loggerheads. And we people, dwindling and oscillating between these two loggerheads, have been very frenetically seeking ways and means to curtail the further spread of the pandemic so that the lockdown should be lifted as early as possible. Friend, according to Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, the most adverse impact have been witnessed by sectors like job, livelihood, health, nutrition, consumer confidence, financial market, travel sector, and the issue under our today's webinar, the supply chains. You know, so far as our imports are concerned, we have been badly depending upon China for a substantial portion of our imports. So many raw material supply, the management and regulation of the finished products, we depend on China. And presently, China being the epicenter of this COVID-19, the countries have started restraining with their import relations with the China. And this is probably the main reason that why this supply chain has been badly disrupted. In our country, on the domestic front also, we see that due to almost stoppage of the transportation system, there is complete crash in the supply chains. The government, as you might have heard, Honorable Prime Minister and other ministers, they often talk about getting self-reliance on so many counts. You know, it is not difficult, but it cannot also come automatically. You know, for that, two things are very important. Number one, that on the physical resource front, on the financial resource front, We have to be first self-reliant, and then having that kind of conducive atmosphere. It is very important. There is no dearth of the talent, but we shall have to bring back our talents from abroad. We shall have to enhance the GDP share for R&D. We shall have to revisit the present structure of the control and command that we have been exerting upon our higher sector institutions and universities. More conducive atmosphere of the R&D shall have to be created. And only then we can think of getting self-reliance, whether it is the supply chain issue or other issues. So only by rhetoric, it is not possible. We need to translate this rhetoric into reality. Today's topic, the sustainable and resilient supply chains. Personally, I am of the opinion that for sustainability, resilience is a prerequisite. They are very proximal terms, almost a kind of synonymous there. If anything is sustainable, it means that it has got the inbuilt character of being resilient also. Flexibility, adaptability, these are the traits which automatically follow the trait of resilience. So this is possible. This we can have, because we Indians, we have seen that our country and our people, they have been blindly following the eternal and well-known philosophy of conservatism. And I am full sure that out of this situation, the entire world, including us, we shall be emerging with a victory. We do not have any dearth of optimism. So with the help of optimism and our conservative policies, we shall certainly be in a position to bring back our entire economy, business, including the supply chains, to even better track. I once again extend a very warm welcome to all the honorable guests and other listeners and viewers, and wish the program a grand success. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for your enlightening thoughts. From a purely business perspective, COVID-19 presents a slew of serious and sometimes unprecedented challenges for organizations, cutting across the business environment, including a possible liquidity crunch, global supply chain disruptions, increase in trade barriers, and a shifting consumer mindset. COVID-19 has brought into question the very foundation of the ultra-globalized economies that we see around us, and anticipates an increase in India's bargaining power with China and US. As the distrust over China increases, India can be a part of multiple economic webs and gain from them. To present her views on the topic now, I invite our first speaker of the session, Dr. Niti Bhasin, Associate Professor, Department of Commerce, Delhi School of Economics, University of Delhi. Before I formally invite Dr. Niti Bhasin to present her views regarding the topic, I'd like to share a few things regarding Dr. Niti Bhasin. She has a teaching experience of around 17 years, and her areas of research specialize are international business, foreign direct investment, international taxation, foreign trade, multinational corporations, international business, and emerging markets. She has obtained her MPhil and PhD degrees from Department of Commerce, Delhi School of Economics, and she has been a gold medalist in MCOM from Delhi University. She has served Department of Commerce, Delhi School of Economics, University of Delhi, and Sri Ram College of Commerce, University of Delhi under various capacities. She has to her credit 8 books including Indian Financial System, Evolution and Present Structure, FDI in India, Policies, Conditions and Procedures, Monetary Banking and Financial Developments in India, She has published several chapters in edited books. She has published various articles in reputed journals like Sage, Emerald, and Taylor and Francis. She has also delivered invited lectures and keynote address at various national and international seminars, including PhD Chamber of Commerce and Industry and Department of Economic Affairs, Ministry of Finance, Government of India. She has also been paper coordinator of the paper on international business for Swayam and EPG Pathshala project under NECT, Ministry of Human Resource and Development, Government of India. She has several honors and awards to her name. Sri Jainarayan Vash Prize in 2000, Best Business Academy of the Year Award in 2011, Silver Medal, and Best Paper Award at various national and international conferences. Now, without further delay, I would request Professor Niti Bhasin to kindly grace the session with her deliberation.
Right. Thank you very much, Dr. Tripathi. I hope I am audible to everyone. Thank you to the School of Management Studies, Professor Jha, the director, for organizing a very topical issue, really, that everyone is talking about these days. And thanks to Dr. Tripathi also for doing all the coordination with regard to this seminar. And of course, to all the participants, a very good evening. So I have been given 10 minutes actually to put forward my views, out of which 2 minutes I think has gone in my introduction. So let me see how I try to fit in the rest of it and my perspectives on this issue. So without any further delay, I would be talking of things from a macro perspective, really, because we look at things from a macro perspective. This would be followed by, I guess, industry experts who will be able to supplement what I say. So in these 8 to 10 minutes that I'll be talking to all of you, I'm just trying to put things in perspective. As to so everyone is really talking about reshaping of the global supply chains and where is India standing in all of this and how how we can take advantage of this opportunity. Before I come to all of that, so for the uninitiated, what we are actually talking about is the fact that the COVID pandemic has led to a complete disruption of the global supply chains. And we have various examples to support it as well. For example, China, as Professor Jha was mentioning, which is the epicenter of the pandemic, disruption in economic activity in China has actually led to disruptions all over the world because China was an integral part of the global supply chains for a lot of products. So the US suffered because the US pharmaceutical industry was extremely dependent on China for a lot of pharma products. Similarly, the US is also dependent on India for a lot of pharma products. And that is when the US realized that if there is disruption in the pharmaceutical industry in China, then how can it affect US as well? And that, so that one example probably set a lot of people thinking that when an integral part of the global supply chain, there is stagnation of economic activity due to any reason whatsoever, then how do you deal with the final product and how do you deal with delivering the final product? So that is the backdrop of what we are actually talking about. And that is what has prompted a lot of countries to start rethinking about their global supply chains. So global supply chains, as all of us understand, means that when we are dealing with a single product, the entire production is not limited to one country, but it is rather spread over a number of countries. And every country is adding value to the product so that by the time the product reaches the final, the country which has finally added value to the product, it's ready for sale. Now, in all of this, our dependence on the countries which are a part of the global value chain increases. So I won't be talking a lot about these global supply chains because all of us have been hearing about it. Let's come to India. So in all of this aftermath of the pandemic, and we are still dealing with it, it's not really aftermath, what have we learned for India? So India has learned two important lessons in all of this. One is which the Prime Minister also mentioned in his most recent speech, that we need to develop self-sufficiency in a lot of critical sectors. Now, this is not something which is very new. It had been coming up again and again, not just for India, but for a lot of other countries. But every time a country thinks of becoming self-reliant, so we have experts all over the globe who tell you that, no, this is a form of protectionism. So you should not be really, thinking of self-sufficiency in critical sector, because that goes against the principles of free trade. And therefore, under the garb of protectionism, it becomes difficult for a country to really support its argument of self-reliant, of being self-reliant. But that is what the pandemic has taught us now. So the first lesson which we have learned, and which a lot of other countries have learned, is to become self-reliant in a lot of critical industries. The second lesson, which is particularly for India now, and which a lot of experts would talk about, is how this entire challenge of the pandemic could be an opportunity for India to become a part of, or to get integrated into the global supply chain. Now, conventionally, India has not been a very important player of the global supply chain. So if we look at the statistics of the past few years, we'll know that we don't figure amongst the top 20. So, of course, there are problems which are related to large-scale production in India. The subsequent speakers who are directly dealing with supply chain would probably be able to point out those problems in a more detailed manner. But from whatever we have learned so far, there is a problem of scale, cost, and efficiency as far as exporting and as far as becoming a part of the global value chain is concerned. So with those problems, India could never really achieve a position where you, like China, where you could be a very important part of the global value chain. So that is how things stood at the moment. They stand at the moment. Now, with this pandemic, the country, the leadership has started rethinking that because there is an anti-China sentiment and because there is a disruption of activity in China, could we look at it as an opportunity for India where we can position ourselves as an alternative to China and try to become a part of the reshaped global supply chain? So that is a question which are, on which there is a lot of discussion and a lot of brainstorming which is going on. Now, while there is no doubt about the fact that it is an opportunity, the question is that there are a lot of challenges in this opportunity. And so what we actually need to brainstorm is about the fact that how do we deal with these challenges? And therefore, how do we capitalize on this particular opportunity which has emerged in times of crisis? So just 2 or 3 things which I would like to mention here. So this the Prime Minister's self-reliant India vision that we are talking about. One, we need, so the intent is clear. It's not just about protecting the economy. It's more about it's more about positioning India as a global player. So there is it's quite a paradox that we are actually linking protectionism with globalization here. Now, because this particular webinar is about technology, well, I'm not an expert on technology really, but from a macro perspective, 1 or 2 insights which I can share here is, India has got certain characteristics which can supplement this particular objective of getting integrated into the global supply chain. So of course, on one side, we have got challenges, which are challenges of scale, which are challenges of cost, which are challenges of efficiency. But then what do we have on the positive side? So if we try to examine that, on the positive, we have a very thriving startup ecosystem. So we are slowly becoming amongst the top 3 or somewhere in the top 3 we are in the world in terms of being a startup hub in the country. Secondly, we have a policy framework which is conducive to innovation and technology. So you have got various schemes of the government, like you have the Atal Innovation Mission, you have the Startup India program, and you have so many more, which are aimed at promoting entrepreneurship and which are aimed at promoting innovation. And they are working quite well in that direction as well. Then another factor which was a positive for India is we are also slowly moving up the global innovation index as well. So that means we are doing pretty good in terms of innovation. So when we are doing good in terms of entrepreneurship, there is a policy framework for innovation. There are startups which are coming with extremely successful business models, which can be made, commercial on a very large scale over a period of time. Then what is it that is stopping us from reaching our destination? So in the analysis which I was trying to do, one or two things which come up is one aspect which relates to the financial aspect. We do not have enough investors to support these technologies, to support these startups in a way that they can become global players. So if you look at the firms which try to invest, there are a lot of Chinese firms which are investing in Indian startups. So Alibaba, Tencent, these are firms which are investing in Indian startups, which means that there is some dearth of domestic capital, and that is the reason why we are resorting to these Chinese firms. So the government therefore decides that in the revised FDI policy, we are going to screen these investors. So one, I think, is that aspect which needs to be addressed. If we have sufficient backing in terms of financing, we have an opportunity to really capitalize on these startups. And the other would be a deeper penetration of technology. A deeper penetration of technology would mean that whatever technology these startups or these innovations are, innovation index that we are talking about, it should spread across the length and breadth of the country. And that can be done through the MSME sector. MSME sector, which is the backbone of the country, if we are able to do deeper penetration of this technology, then a lot of firms in India can have ownership advantages in terms of technology. Well, so I don't know, I guess I have very little time, so I'll just try to close here in the sense that, see, whatever I have read over a period of time, it says that technology is no longer the legacy of the developed world. And in the recent past, a lot of developing countries have come up with a lot of innovations, and India particularly, because we have a head start in services sector as well. So we are doing a lot of innovation in the IT sector, in artificial intelligence. There is a lot of technology. What we need to do is commercialize this technology, and number two, finance it well, so that there could be a long-term scaling of all these things which can be done. So I guess if I look at the clock, my time is up. There is probably a lot more which I could have said, but I leave it to the other speakers who are industry experts, and I'm sure they have a lot to contribute. So thank you very much, all of you, and I look forward to questions, if any, at a later point in time. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Your session, I mean, your thoughts were really mind-boggling. Supply chain sustainability has become an integral part of corporate strategy for virtually every industry nowadays. However, post-COVID world will see digital technologies playing a critical enabling role in delivering improvements throughout breadth of businesses, including more resilient supply chains, significantly enhanced user experiences, and intelligent, optimized process to deliver process outcomes. With this, I would like to call on our next speaker, Dr. Rakesh Paras Singh ji. Sir is here. Before I request Sir to begin his deliberation, Sir is Chairman and Dean, Institute of Supply Chain Management, Demand Planning Academy, and SCM Pro Knowledge, Mumbai. He is an author, supply chain speaker at global forums, demand planning and integrated business planning thought leader. He gives consultations and does leadership training in the area of geopolitics, business forecasting, demand planning, and IBP supply chain strategy. He has served as director of IMT Business School, Dubai. He is the founding director of Durga Devi Saraf Institute of Management Studies, Mumbai. He has served as professor and chairperson corporate research at SVKM Narsi Monji Institute of Management Studies. He has served as dean Narsi Monji Institute of Management Studies, School of Economics, Mumbai. He has been an adjunct faculty at SP Jain School of Management. He has been a consulting dean of Poddar World College, Mumbai. He has been a visiting professor to various institutes like Institute of Management, Calcutta, Athens University of Economics and Business, Great Lakes Institute of Management, Chennai. Several awards that Sir holds is from the Government of Maharashtra Dakshina Fellowship, Asha L. Datar Gold Medal for Best Faculty, and he has been nominated in 25 Most Talented Rural Marketing Professionals of India. Without further delay, I would request Sir to begin his deliberation. Dr. Rakesh Paras Singh ji.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah, so I can be heard, right?
Right, sir, you can be here.
Yeah. Thank you for inviting me. I think Banaras is very special to me because this is the place I come from, and every year, twice, I go to Gazipur, where my native town is. So I think it's very nice to be connected, though virtually now because of the pandemic. I heard the director, Saab, and Madam on the pandemic. So I thought I'll just extend the whole discussion beyond what they have actually looked at it. And hence, I'll divide the whole scenario from a purely geopolitical supply chain point of view, which is important for us to understand the disconnection in the supply chain. And thank God it is the first time in the history of the world that supply chain have become lifeline of organizations and nation states. If you see what started in Wuhan was a complete supply shock. I think world was worried because where will the supplies come from? And then looking at from that particular November to March and from March to now, world has suddenly been engulfed by this pandemic. So what started as a supply shock led to a widespread pandemic, and the incidence of the pandemic as well as the length of the pandemic will determine the impact on the global economy, GDP. And as demand is no enigma, it's a function of GDP. Here is a situation where we are caught up in a very different situation. It is not like the earthquake. It is not like in fact, tsunami. It's not like floods in Thailand. It's something very, very different. It's also not like the 2008 financial crisis. What you see today is that it's a combination of these natural events plus the economic crisis and extended over a long period of time. What does it does to the organizations? It has actually had very big impact on organization across the globe. It has disrupted supply on the one hand and has changed the pattern of demand on the other hand and stripped all organizations of cash, creating an unprecedented crisis in the history of business organizations. In India, when it started, and on 23rd, 25th of March, when we declared the first level of lockdown, since then till now, there has been a huge disruption in the economic activity. And this disruption in the economic activity, even after lockdown 2.0 and lockdown 3.0, is affecting the overall demand in the economy. Now, the big question is that how have firms been affected? How have Indian firms been actually responding to this? What are the major questions that comes into the mind of people? And I would say that there are a lot of issues that we need to really deal with. How have we been affected on the supply shock side? India, as Madam rightly said, like US, imports a large amount of formulations as well as API, which goes into the basis for making drugs and pharmaceutical. 75% of our import comes from China. Now, what happened to the Indian pharmaceutical industry post this particularly on this thing? How did they manage this? In fact, one thing, that demand for drugs would not go down, demand for medicines would not go down, and hence how was it managed? Two, as the lockdown extended, economic activities were disrupted, and as Professor Jha rightly said, it will grow at 1%. What happened to the demand pattern? And then what happened to the supply chain? Now, if you really look at the global supply chain or global value chain, as Madam was talking about, what you really find is that because of not just the virus in particular area called Wuhan in Hubei province, it was something much more than that. The sea route got blocked and clogged. The airports were stopped all over the world. You won't believe, when medicines came to India, when essential commodities came from the global market to India, they were lying at the airports and the Nhava Sheva seaport in Bombay for days together. They not only they were lying down, they clogged the whole, in fact, cargoes at the airport and at the ports, and there was no place for any other commodity to be stored there to be exported in the world market. And this happened not only in India, it happened everywhere in the world, in major ports in the world, across the globe, when you see 190, 196 countries being affected by the pandemic. Now, this was an unprecedented clogging of supplies. What happened? How do you manage such a challenge? And I think I'll give you an example of one or two companies. There's a company called Delivery, which deals with sanitized product for hotels across the world. And we did some work for them, and we found that it was really important for organizations to be different and agile. I think, what is an organization? Organization is a collection of people, skills, knowledge, and technology and resources. How do you react in such a time of major crisis? And what happens exactly is that during this period of crisis, Delivery started looking at alternative sources of buying these sanitation products in such a way that they secured their supplies, because they knew that as the crisis extends, because they're having a great experience in China and it extends to other countries, demand for sanitation product, demand for all hygiene products are going to go up. And that is what exactly happened. Demand went not 5 or 6 times that they expected, went 18 or 19 times they expected. And they could service 5 to 6 times because they had made an initial move from China to any other geography, including India, and they started, seeing those who were making these hygiene products in India. They gave orders to them. They also tried to see that some lines, which are production lines, which were like Beckett, with the partners that they had, they can actually produce. And then they have done a phenomenal job of serving 7 times more demand during the pandemic at this point of time. But most organizations were clueless. They thought this is just like a pandemic, this will happen. Now, what happens? What kind of risk are Indian organizations or global organizations facing? And what you find is very interesting. In supply chain, you need demand. The demand has to be, fed to production. It has to be produced. When the production takes place, the supply has to come. And when your large amount of supplies are coming from one single source called China, and the options for this source also is in China, and you are totally blocked, and there is a huge crisis in the supplier there. And you know how it happens? It's just not a simple process. Most organizations contact their supplier tier 1, that is the main supplier. But that is where the story does not end. There is a supplier to supplier to sub-supplier to sub-supplier to sub-supplier, maybe 4 or 5 or 6 or 10 tiers. And what some of them are delivering is thinking is that though China has opened, things will happen, and they're not getting their supply. Why? Because the tier 1 supplier had an inventory. He finished his inventory. He never knew what is the relationship he had with tier 2, tier 3, tier 4. And he realized that tier 4 did not even have cash to produce anything when they saw that China was opening. And when China has opened, when our port have been gone away, there is a downward bull wave. 100 units have become 0 unit, and you were thinking that you will get all the 100 units. It has disrupted the supply, and I don't know how impactful this will be post-lockdowns. I'm in Bombay, heavily infected like any other country in the world, and I can see that a lot of friends who are heading supply chains, this is the situation. How do you manage this? How do you manage the supply? you have never worked on mapping the supply chain. So that's one problem. I think I'll have to quicken up. But on the demand side, suddenly there was no demand. Everything was locked down. You could not reach anywhere. And now there's an orange, red, and green zone. What do you do? How do you reach this? And then organization did a very, very different thing. They stopped stocking everything. They saw that there was a huge change in category. People started buying larger categories. People started buying non-branded product, and people started buying in a very, very big sizes. There was a huge demand for the groceries and essential item. What did companies do? They watched the daily trend. They call it as hyper-local way of planning. And they started producing because there were no manpower. Everybody has gone home. The way, the sad story of migrants, I come from that side of area where migrants come from, and I've seen the sad story of them moving away from the production centers, not being cared for. They've been going to their villages, walking. All these stories are known to us. But what has that done? There are no workers available. So you have to use the local workers, little bit of worker, maintain social distancing, see that there is no geographical hazardous or occupational risk there of COVID, and maintain a factory. And hence you could produce only that. When you can produce only that, and we are allowed as an essential commodity, firms use data very well to get this and then produce only what was demanded, serve them to the localized places, and use hyperlocal, third-party last mile service provider like Swiggy also to reach the reach the people in the cities. Now, in that situation, you find that there's one thing that has happened. Though I'm praising Indian companies to be very virile, people have worked from home, they've managed supplies, there have been problems in the supplies, no doubt. In fact, e-commerce demand went 4 times. They were all dead because there were no workers, there were no trucks. And today, when the things are normalizing, the workers are still moving away from this. So there's a complete human crisis, and there's a huge human face of supply chain which will emerge. How would technology help? And this is where I think that we need to really know that technology is going to be a very effective element of change. Why? One of the major supply chain outcomes of this pandemic is that we have realized that the whole supply chain is into silos. They don't interact with each other. The vulnerabilities of supply chain, some of the organizations which have been affected very badly, is that they have not been able to connect and know. Like I said about mapping your supplier tier 5, you don't know what is lying with your distributor, you don't know what is lying with the sub-distributor, what is lying with the retailer, and hence there's a huge inventory lying. Luckily, that inventory was used to serve the customer and we are very happy. But now the inventory is over, factory is not running. How do I run this? The best example is that, can we start looking at digital technology? And let me be very simple. Can we put sensor like IoT everywhere? Can you automate most of the things, helping workers to do better? Can we analyze every data and then react to the data? Can we, in fact, use blockchains? Blockchains are ledger system. And what does blockchain say? The whole supply chain from the retailer to the sub-supplier to sub-supplier can be a ledger system. Everything that you put on this ledger system will be visible. Nobody can change. And you can map the gaps in the supply chain, making supply chain efficient, granular, visible, agile, and responsive. And when your supply chain becomes agile and responsive, you can use data. Big data is a big way. What is big data? Big data does not use statistics, though we really think it's statistics. It uses algorithm depending upon the characteristics of data, create insights, and these insights are used to plan. And these insights can be seen. I'll give you an example of a company I consult with, Pernod Ricard. They prepare the Bacardi rum. And what, in this rains last year, when there was huge floods in Bihar, their truck got caught up somewhere between Ranchi and Jamshedpur, and they had to reach some places in Jharkhand. They rerouted the truck, another truck there. Why? Because they have a vertical tower where they have complete information of what is moving where, and how can you reroute the whole supply chain in a way that it reduces the cost of going, and disruption does not remain disruption. And I think there are researchers, there's a very famous researcher, I say, you can look at him, his name is Yossi Sefi. He says that all those who can map their supply chain from tier 1 to tier 6 supplier, creates business continuity process longer than anybody else, and those who can map their demand reduces the variability and inventory and cost, and manage cash. This cash can be used to help our suppliers, can be used to help our distributor, and this way of doing business reduces the cost of disruption in a big way. And I think Indian firms, except for the few ones which were trying to do this, are far behind on the curve of technology adoption. They think that all the job can be done by the technology. And this is the last question. Technology is an enabler, whatever I've said, it can be done. But you need to have talking people. You see marketing, finance, supply chain, then you have product development, you have other areas where functional, they all don't talk. Even in our classes, professors of these things don't know the subject, interoperability. World is changed. You need to know what is happening, interoperability. And how do you, this looks like this. Everything can be visible to a marketing team, to the operation team, to the finance team, to the logistics team. And if this happens, everybody is working for the same thing. And everybody knows what lies where. They can reroute, replan, and they can actually replan their production unit because inventory is lying in different places. Visibility is the key for managing disruptions, and mapping is the key for managing all this resilience that can be built in the system. We need to move from those data called as historical based time series data of managing supply chain to more deterministic, more non-deterministic, resilience based policy called connected planning. And I think some of you should look for connected planning. There are companies which provide this, but Indian companies want to remain on Excel. They don't want to get into visibility mode. Visibility is a pain because then you have to act in the interest of the organization. And I think the time has come that this pandemic will teach a lesson that you better be connected, you better be agile, you better be responsive, you better be granular. Every one order from Amazon can be served with the maximum efficiency. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. I mean, I should really say you have touched, the depths of the problem that in COVID-19 scenario, which the supply chain is facing as of now. Now, moving to our next speaker, as we all have been discussing with the past speakers now, India imports well over half of its active pharmaceutical ingredients, APIs, from China. In past few weeks, the Indian government selective restriction on API import has added to logistic challenges created by COVID-19. Considering that India is biggest supplier of generic medicines worldwide, this could very easily lead to a global shortage or an opportunity for India. In such a scenario, the big question is how the vision of self-reliance can be achieved and what role technology has to play in it. With this, I would like to call upon our next speaker, Shri Manoj Kumar Dubey ji, Director Finance, Container Corporation of India. Talking about Sir completed his graduation and post-graduation from Hindu College, University of Delhi. He completed MBA from Department of Management Studies, Indian School of Mines, Dhanbad, and taught there with specialization in finance and human resource, and had been conferred the overall silver medal from the then President of India. He joined civil services under Indian Railway Administrative Services of 93 batch. Prior to joining civil services, he worked with UTI for 2 years in blazing the trail in the arena of education, assimilating rural masses into various lucrative schemes of mutual funds. He is a recipient of National Award for Outstanding Services at Ministry of Railways level in the year 2011. He has paved path in Indian Railways in ushering payment of salary through bank to almost 100% employees for each division he was associated with. E-tendering, e-auction, payment of contractor, supplier through RTGS, NEFT, computerization of bill, passing, pension settlement, PF, etc., complete through digital mode. He has vast experience of train operations management and freight loading mechanism, having worked as head of finance for 3 major loading divisions, that is Dhanbad, Asansol, and Mughalsarai for Indian Railways. Shri Dubey has been associated with many prestigious projects like setting up loco factories through PPI, FDI for Indian Railways, and high-speed rail for Indian Railways, dedicated freight corridor for railways as financial key advisor to Infrastructure Directorate. He has developed expertise in tariff structuring of freight and passenger trains, as well as for catering and tourism contracts at strategic level. He has experience of drafting many cabinet notes and has vast experience of international competitive bidding for mega projects. Sri Dubey was in the board of directors of joint venture companies of General Electricals of USA and Indian Railways, Alstom of France and Indian Railways, joint venture company of NMDC, SAIL and Indian Railways. Without further delay, I would request our third speaker. Sir, I would request you to begin your deliberation.
Good evening, friends. Various, I hope I'm
Yes, sir, you're audible, sir.
Without wasting any minutes, I'll start from where Dr. Niti and Dr. Rakesh has taken this webinar in a macro manner, giving a glimpses of what is happening worldwide, not only in India. Having said that, relevant to the topic, I'll be concentrating myself on how, as National Supply Chain Company of India, we face this COVID, and how leverage of technology that we already had in our company kept us in good stead. So, recalling the days of 21st or 22nd March, it was, as mentioned by the earlier speakers, it was really a shock to the whole country, how to go about in this lockdown period, and how to ensure that the basic minimum requirement of food and medical things at least are being distributed all over the country. And here came the role for my company, that the Container Corporation of India Limited, to give a glimpse of that. We are handling around 80% of the EXIM traffic in the country, catering to all the major ports of the country. On the western port, JNPT Nhava Sheva, mentioned by Mr. Singh, to Mundra, to Pipavav, eastern sector also, as well as in the domestic field, the containerized things, which are all, as you mentioned, the medical equipments, medicines, etc., and the food grains are mainly in containerized manner. And we had another task to ensure that this supply chain is continued. We were a technologically leveraged company, and here came the facilities that brought to us, and they made us realize that unless we had these platforms with us, it was not only difficult, it was nearly impossible to do what we could do in last 2.5 months. To give you the few things that we had already in our system, last year we converted our whole system in e-office format. E-office format in this country, as we do, that every decision making is done on the web. There is no paper dealing. So think of a containerized depot in Visakhapatnam. If they initiate something for an approval from the corporate office, nowadays it is done in 1 day, which used to take at least 15 days in early time. My cargo visibility is 100%. It is there on the web. All bookings can be done on web. Earlier, this was a choice that you can come to the depot, ICD, and bookings. And very few people were friendly with these kind of things. So they were using, mostly as we do in our country, coming and having a touch and feel at the counters and doing things. When this pandemic happened, and all of a sudden everybody was told not to move out, these technologies came as a real handy thing. We were perhaps among the few companies who had everything in place on the technology platform. And that is why, not for a single day, the traffic or the domestic traffic was closed for us. Mr. Singh mentioned about the problems at Nhava Sheva. To his information, sir, to your information, sir, PSA at Chennai, PSA at Nhava Sheva, we were the backbone to them in clearing all the backlogs of the containers lying there and bringing it to hinterland to all our depots. And mind you, sir, in this country, in 2.5 months, nobody had cribbed about any lack of food grains anywhere. Now think of it, how a person sitting in Chennai is having the rice how a person sitting in Bihar is having pulses, nobody is knowing about it in the right perspective. Country is moving lot of food grains from one part of the country to the other, and it is a continuous process. Just because of leverage of technology, this could be done in such a seamless manner that nobody knows why there is not a shortage of food grains in the country. Somebody was talking about the PPE kits and those things. China, for your information, is already shipping things out. They had this pandemic 3 months before us. So by the time we were gripped into it, they have started producing things. And for the kind information of everybody, shipping into the country is already on. The level may not be as big as it used to be, but as figures we are finding it for the last 1 week or fortnight, it is almost 60 to 70% of what we used to import in this country through the containers. So all those things, as mentioned by everybody, had not been there a technological platform in place, it would have been really difficult. Last mile and first mile connectivity came to a very big exposure in this pandemic. Somebody was mentioning about blockchain. Yes, it was the key. It's not only about taking the container from Navasava or Mundra port to the ICD in Tughlakabad. It was in this pandemic when truckers were not moving around, it was taking that container to the right place. And at the right place, because laborers were not there, you had to keep that container as a warehouse and having a tab of that on your computers. Where is my container lying, even for a week or fortnight? All that could be done only because of very robust technological platform that Concor had. We are a government company, and it was a pride for us to find out that being a government company, we had everything in place compared to my private container competitors who might not have thought that this kind of situation can come. So coming to the relevant topic, there has to be infusion, there has to be thinking, there has to be a process that whatever latest is available, not only in the country but outside also, whatever latest is being planned by the startups, let us engage with them and bring in those innovations into the ecosystem to make it as seamless as it can be. And everybody talking about new normal. This new normal, had it been a blue from bolt and there was no preparation in the past, we would have really caught unaware and things would have been a bigger mess. Just to give a glimpse of how the country is working, because I'm representing somebody who is doing it, who is part of the process where enrichment in these fields are being done every week, every month, every year. And we are also trying to make things as seamless on the technology base by using all the kind of tools available in the country or even outside the country. Having said that, this topic is really relevant, and unless every participant into this ecosystem is not equally equipped, the benefits will not come in a way it should have come. This is the key, and this is the bottom line of the whole discussion, that if all participants are not in the same league, if they are not using the technology in the same manner, it is not only about innovations. Innovation is part one. You putting that innovation into the commercial use is part two, and at the same time making every user to use it in a friendly manner is the last chain of the whole ecosystem. Unless we ensure that all our users are very, very comfortable using this platform and using this facility, the benefit will not disseminate in the manner we want it to. And let me assure you that this pandemic has really come out with a lot of lessons. Part one was that if companies like Concor were really investing and really concerned about doing the technological leverage in the supply chain, we are on the right path. Dealing with the nearly 100 tons a day of the container traffic, nearly 40 million ton of cargo in a year, and making a top line of 7,000 crores in this business, we know that this this requirement and input of technology in the system is really, really necessary. And this was a time when we really came to understand the use of it, the benefits of it. And let's be assured that not only this company, everybody in the ecosystem is going to really work hard on this area. And startups, other guys who are into this field, and they are making these kind of technological things available to everybody at a real cost, will be a new normal where it will be utilized in a very big manner. I'm closing my discussion on these lines so that there are so many people participating, and I'm sure that many questions will come. We would like to take the questions on these lines. Thank you so much for giving me a chance, and I'm here to participate in the questions.
Thank you so much, sir. You've touched the real effects and the company Container Corporation India that has been taken part in this COVID-19 scenario. Mostly when everything has stopped, Container Corporation of India has been working. Moving further to our last speaker of the session. Speaking of the industrial perspective, current situation is likely to accelerate digital transformation initiatives for business across the globe as they are forced to face their weaknesses and vulnerabilities. Technology-led business models will emerge as more critical and important than ever, and will play a key role in defining the strategy as we reimagine the global supply chains of tomorrow. With these words, I would like to call our final speaker of the session, Shri Rajneesh Kumarji, Chief Corporate Affairs Officer, Flipkart Group. Prior to Flipkart Group, Shri Rajneesh Kumarji has been an engineer by training and pursued his MBA from INSEAD, France, and executive education from Stanford Graduate School of Business. He is passionate about shared value creation and driving responsibility business agenda. With a career spanning over 2 decades in government and private sector, Mr. Kumar is a noted thought leader in industry on policy, public relations, creation of shared value. He leads corporate affairs for Flipkart operations and overseas and direct strategic government engagement, public affairs, media, internal communications, CSR, philanthropy, sustainability initiatives, and adding to helping drive long-term strategy. Prior to Flipkart, Mr. Kumar was Chief Corporate Affairs Officer of Walmart India, responsible for managing the overall reputation of the company through government relations, public affairs, strategic communications, CSR, and sustainability. Mr. Kumar also serves on the CII National Committee on Marketing and FICCI Committee of Retail and International Trade, FICCI E-Commerce Committee, in addition to American Chamber of Commerce in India and Retail Association of India. Before joining Walmart India in September 2013, he served in leadership roles across several countries, industries, and government. He led corporate affairs strategy in India for Global AG, a biotech leader, Monsanto. In addition, he has served in senior management position for VSNL, for the Government of India as a part of senior management cadre of Indian Civil Services, and spearheaded the Indian business of a large European healthcare PE fund. Without further delay, I would request our final speaker of the session, Shri Rajneesh Kumarji, to kindly begin his deliberation.
Videsh, thank you so much, and I think it's a very exalted company that we have here. Most of the stuff that I wanted to talk about, Rakesh sir has already sort of touched upon on majority of those aspects. So I'll only talk basically as a practitioner, because I have been involved in some of those responses and efforts to sort of bring back the supply chain, which has got badly impacted in this unprecedented health crisis. And you know, on that, while he has looked at all the important aspects that different components in the supply chain are not talking to each other, and not looking at a holistic aspect of where the products are, where the people are in terms of labor. That's also an important component, and you know, what potentially can be done. But I would recount, I got a little delayed while coming to this seminar, and the reason was Karnataka government, when they looked at farmers who are not able to sell their mangoes because of issues, because of lockdown, you know what they thought about, can they leverage technology to sort of expand the reach of farmers? And I was actually very happy and surprised, pleasantly surprised, that there are different factions across all stakeholders who are looking at leveraging technology to sort of create sort of mass impacts. So for example, after this one, many of the farmers in Karnataka would be able to sell their mangoes on Flipkart Marketplace. Imagine the same conversation last year when we did with them. They were not very willing. They did around 2,000 boxes of mangoes. Today, the expectation right on a day when we started it is around 20,000 plus boxes which are already sold. So the technology can play an extremely important role, especially in bringing the supply chain issues together. And I know in the beginning, ma'am also talked about more macro phenomena, what's happening globally, and our ambitions on becoming sort of attracting a lot of the manufacturing in India. But yeah, let's get to the basic issues that we have today, and maybe we'll loosely touch upon what technology can do. And of course, there is a lot of work which we're actually doing to make it happen. You would hopefully see something in next few months, not to be quoted right now outside, but yeah, there is a lot of work happening on it. So when I look at the three problems which are more pressing from a supply chain perspective, which country is facing, is one is, of course, is a highly disrupted supply chain. You are aware, all of you are professionals, from a learning perspective, there has been issues on, there's a mismatch, geographical mismatch and demand supply, right? Similarly, there are issues which are policy issues, there's no, the blur or the divide between essential and non-essential is another one. There's a migrant workforce, which is unavailability and restrictions on travel. Similarly, the second problem would be sort of high unemployment. You must be noticing that companies have been forced to lay off workers due to some demand. Demand has gotten significantly down. Many companies are cutting back because there is uncertainty ahead. Similarly, there are forced shutdown because of containment efforts, which are affecting contract labor. And of course, social distancing necessities also preventing labor ramp up. These are all real problems which almost all companies in retail supply chain face. And third one, of course, is the crisis hasn't gone away, right? While we are talking about lives and livelihood, I think the issues remains what happens if there's a recurring infection and the disruption because of that. People talk about second wave, third wave. I think we're still grappling with how do we sort of contain fully the first wave. And and workers are very anxious, from a safety perspective, what can be done, and this is actually hampering ramping up of the supply chain. Now, what can be done actually? How can technology? And I think it will summarize only to some extent what senior sort of panelists have spoken earlier about this. One is there are three things which I'll touch upon. One is on tracing. Second will be sort of decision making using data, and I think it will also touch upon the conversation which Mr. Professor Rakesh mentioned about that different systems across the country are not talking to each other, and how do we sort of use that data. Third is what the digitization can actually help in this whole sort of bringing it much more efficient. And when I say digitization, I actually mean the supply chain, which also include international supply chain. So, by the way, just to sort of intervene here in between with additional data, we also, when we looked at issues that were arising from a supply chain disruption perspective, where trucks were stranded on the road, migrant workers were not available, we actually created a lot of ecosystem partnership, including with railways, postal, mom and pop kirana stores, getting online cab aggregators into the play so that customers have access to products at their doorstep. So we have tried to sort of not just leverage technology to sort of making it efficient, but also build ecosystem partnership. Now, three things which I'll sort of before, I know we are over time already, but I'll be very quick on this one, is in terms of if the question is about the rapid scale of supply chain, which means scaling transportation, scaling warehouses, storage, and making sure that we have sufficient workers. The three key aspects under that head would be we need to get visibility of transport assets across the country. We need to get visibility of warehousing and logistics and storage assets. Similarly, from a decision data perspective, we need to make sure that we are able to forecast demand so that there is a viable scale up. We don't want a situation where you're scaling it up, but demand doesn't exist because customer is actually is very uncertain about the future and they are not sure they're not intending to buy do some discretionary shopping. On digitization front, I think the two pieces which I would really want to sort of highlight is how do we digitize documentation and digitize regulatory approvals? In this whole COVID process, one of the struggle for us has been, for example, we got a call in between from one of the senior officials in the government saying, Azadpur Mandi is sort of full with agriculture produce, but nobody is buying. Can you guys help? Now, getting those approvals from APMC was such a task. It was impossible because all of them wanted people to come back to the offices, sign up forms, and do all sort of offline work to make it happen. So yeah, there are significant opportunity from a digitization of approval perspective. Now, the second piece, which I thought I'll just mention is how do we anticipate and prevent disruptions in future? And I think that's, again, under three heads of tracing. One will be health status tracking for workers, tracking infection status at a company and branch level. Similarly, from a data perspective, how do we predict potentially infected workers and companies to quickly quarantine and mitigate the risk? And on digitization perspective, viable digital tracking capability, availability for all companies and workers. So what it will do, it will actually connect companies with manufacturing setup. Similarly, it will also connect in terms of what does the labor availability look like in your neighborhood, which is healthy and can actually come to work. And with this, the third point is really about how do we sort of increase employment, because that remains a pressing problem always in India with a billion plus people sort of working here. Is how do you scale up employment with safety, and how do you increase the productivity of workers? We should talk about health status of workers. On data is real-time risk prediction in health status of workers based on the location they have visited. And on digitization perspective, it will be viable digital tracking capability across all workers and dispersal of digital passes and containment zone. If some of you would have seen the papers at the time when we were in the beginning phase of lockdown, this was one of the struggle. You're not sure how to get passes. How do we make sure that we move products to consumers when they need it? So essential, non-essential, I talked about you. And second was this one of the massive one. People were getting beaten up on the road by authorities because they didn't have a clear instruction. So coordination between state and center also sort of created a lot of issues. So I think, but having said that, I think in a summary, technology can actually play a vital role in all aspects that I just mentioned about, which will not just help in knowing and tracing our assets that we have and how do we sort of leverage them in a safer manner. And we will need to, of course, do policy enablement. I'm not even getting into the political nature of retail and e-commerce or of supply chain, because that's another massive one which can become very, very controversial, and some of you may relate to those topics. But yeah, as a country, I think we need to do a lot more. It probably won't happen by just. I know we have been speaking a lot about all these things, but we need to take very, very proactive steps so that we can take advantage of the crisis to solve for it for long term. And today, technology thankfully allows us to do it, irrespective of whether you are in developed nation or developing nation. From a technology perspective, we are actually far ahead of many developed nations. And I think the opportunity is real and large to sort of make a difference here. Viresh, back to you.
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing your views with the topic, and also sharing the initiative that Flipkart is taking as of now in this current COVID-19 scenario. Now, without wasting any time, I would like to request Dr. Amitabh Pandey, sir, Associate Professor and Course Coordinator for PGDM program at SMS Varanasi, to facilitate the question and answer session. Amitabh, sir, over to you.
Thank you, Viresh, sir, and good evening to one and all present in the webinar. So I'll begin with the question and answer session. We have got a few questions and we would like to take up maximum number of questions. So the first question that I'll be directing to Mr. Rajneesh Kumar has come from Mr. Ganga Kumar Bina, and he asked, can Indian Postal Department play a vital role in sorting out supply chain at local level? Can Indian Postal Department play a vital role in sorting out supply chain at local level? Question is directed to Mr. Rajneesh Kumar.
Sure. No, thank you so much for this question. I think it does have an important role. But having said that, I would definitely love to mention here that today we have almost like 1.2 lakh people in supply chain, and we deliver to 100% of the pin codes in India. So we have built up capabilities for delivering to every part of the country. And Postal Department, of course, has a role, and we continue to look for collaboration. But there are, of course, limitations in terms of the parcel sizes and stuff like that. So for smaller things, it's comparatively easy. But we need to sort of bring reliability play into it in terms of customer SLA and stuff. So what we have done at Flipkart, we have actually built a supply chain which is pan-India, able to access every pin code in the country, including hill areas.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Now I'll move to the next question. And this question is directed to Dr. Rakesh Paras Singh. The question has come from Dr. Jagat Jyoti Barua. He is from Jorhat, Assam, and he is asking, is WTO really losing importance as most countries may opt to develop protectionism or self-reliance? Dr. Rakesh Paras Singh. Is WTO really losing importance as most countries may opt to develop protectionism or self-reliance? Dr. Singh.
Sir, you're not audible. Yes.
Yes.
So I think WTO has done a good job of helping world globalize, but you have seen that in the last 5-6 years, globalization and WTO is a standstill. After the Doha round, WTO was, is at a standstill. I think the world has moved very differently, and no process can be said to be a continuous upward rising process. Given the, how single sourcing has been used for global leveraging of economies of scale, and due to various natural calamities and this pandemic, it has been realized that countries have to secure their supplies in a much better way. So you have to diversify your products. So that still will be a globalization, and larger things which are needed very quickly has to be local. And localization is also given a push. If you see the countries that are being looked upon, it's India, Southeast Asia, and Brazil. They are the countries, so it is diversifying in that sense. So maybe that is there. But yes, some of the norms of WTO may not hold true because countries, even US is flaunting it in a big way. So is China. And hence, WTO is here for a very, very tough time as an institution. And there are new rules of WTO that may need to be defined. And you know that the General Agreement of Trade and Traffic, which gave rise to WTO, took so many years. So this debate will go for another 30 years and world will change in its own way. Reshoring, localization, and diversification of supply bases are imperative for businesses to survive. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Now I move to the next question. This question has come from Dr. Avinash Chandra Sukkar. He is asking this question to Mr. Manoj Dubey. And the question is, how will the reverse migration of laborers, layoffs, and restricted interstate travel combined affect supply chain in India? How will the reverse migration of laborers, layoffs, and restricted interstate travel combined affect supply chain in India? The question is directed to Mr. Manoj Dubey.
Situation is really chaotic. There's no doubt about it. And to give a time frame for getting the normal situation back is a difficult proposition as of now. But looking forward and as things are moving ahead, there are two things of it. One, as one of the speakers mentioned, that there was a difficulty in finding out what is in essential category and what is not in essential category. That demarcation was very, very porous in my view. So the categories which were really essential, there, for your kind information, 20, 30, or even you can think of 40% of the labor force would be held back. They had some kind of, they were not the permanent workers, but they had some kind of a relation, kind of bonding where they were not made jobless overnight. That was one area. But definitely 60 to 70% of the labor force has migrated back. I'm using the word migrated back. So the fact that it was not for the months or the years, but maybe for 5 to 10 years, this backbone of the business were staying in the place, displaced from their native place. They are going back. Now, the sentiments will play in a manner which is going to play a very important role. Mr. Singh mentioned the place Gazipur. I also belong to the district next to him, Bhojpur. And having a connect with the village, we know the mindset of the workers of Hindi heartland. It will be a difficult proposition in the next, say, in the span of 6 months to get them back from the villages where they are feeling comfortable. But yes, economy will surely prevail. Let's be optimistic about it. The time frame that we are giving it is second quarter of this FY to be on a very optimistic side, and we feel that our monsoon, as we have seen the experience of China, I believe that the experience of China is very, very important for us. They started with this pandemic in the month of December officially, and see by March, they were limping back to the normalcy kind of thing. So feeling that optimism, I feel that these migrants will start coming back, but with the rider that things won't be normal on both sides. The cost of coming back will be higher, and coming to this important aspect of supply chain where the country is struggling to make the unit cost at least at a level which the business can really sustain it, I feel that is going to be high, and it will be a challenge to keep it under control. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. And the next question is directed to Dr. Niti Bhasin, and this question has come from Dr. Nazmul Hussain Laskar. He is asking, do you think that due to COVID-19, the forces of uninterrupted globalization will give way to the forces of protective nationalism? I repeat, do you think that due to COVID-19, the forces of uninterrupted globalization will give way to the forces of protective nationalism?
All right. Well, so see, globalization is already in retreat as we are witnessing. So globalization of production and then globalization of markets is how it all started. Yes, so the answer is yes for this question. We will witness that trend, no matter what the IMF says. So the IMF is particularly concerned about the fact that once the pandemic gets over, you might see a trend in countries where everyone wants to now, someone said, reshore. So bring companies back to their borders. US is already doing it, whether it's through punitive measures or whether it's through some encouragement. Many countries are already working in the direction of getting their companies back to their shores. So globalization is retreating in that sense. Even before the pandemic occurred, there are technological solutions which companies are arriving at so that they don't have to move offshore, and so that they can try to internalize their process within their own country as well. So this process, which had actually started before the pandemic, has now got a thrift because of the pandemic. And we have already, we've already seen examples. India, for example, is talking of becoming more self-reliant and dealing, one of the speakers talked about the API in pharmaceuticals. So we might be the largest producer of generic medicines in the world, but we are still dependent on China when it comes to ingredients. So the idea is to bring that to our country as well. So let's manufacture APIs in India. And the government has already announced a package for that. US is doing it as well. Japan is doing it. Japan has announced a more than 2 billion package to bring its companies back to its country. 90% of the package is actually directed at bringing those companies back to Japan, and a very little 10% to relocate them from China to some other country in the world. So yes, we may call it protectionism, we may call it nationalism. The objectives of protectionist nationalism differ across countries. They may be different from developed countries, they may be different from developing countries. But yes, we are moving towards that trend. It may be worrisome for some of the nations, but this is something which will stay at least for some period of time to come. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I think we have the questions, but we are running out of time, so we will not be able to take further questions. Thank you very much, panelists, for answering the questions. Over to you, Varesh sir.
Thank you so much, Amitabh sir. Due to paucity of time, we could not take more questions. This webinar wouldn't have been possible without a lot of helping hands. So a lot of people have put hands in this webinar. And I would request Mr. Kartikeya Singh, Assistant Professor and Course Coordinator, MBA Program, SMS Varanasi, to extend vote of thanks officially to all the people who have supported to this webinar. Kartikeya sir.
Thank you so much, sir. When session started, we were not sure in which direction this particular entire webinar is going to move ahead. But the way things came out, and people have got so many insights from our esteemed panelists. So first of all, I'm really thankful to all the esteemed panel member, for giving this beautiful insight on different aspects of the supply chain management. The best part was, in each and every sections, we kept on getting different insights or different inputs, and different perspectives were there in every detailed discussion which is being deciphered from our esteemed panel members. If we start with Dr. Diti Bhasin ma'am, Associate Professor in International Business, Delhi School of Economics, University of Delhi. Ma'am started like global supply chain, dependence on global supply chain is there. We are highly dependent on global supply chain, but due to disruption, we are not able to cope up with this particular situation. Ma'am has also taken this opportunity, like it can be a kind of opportunity for us to grab, and two kind of opportunities are there. We can become self-reliant in terms of supply chain, and the second one is how can this opportunity be integrated into the global supply chain, how we can become the major part of this global supply chain. These were the two perspectives which came out as an insight from ma'am's deliberation. But ma'am has also mentioned like three challenges are there: challenges of scale, challenges of cost, and challenges of efficiency. If we will be able to handle these three challenges by the integration of technology, will be able to become self-reliant, as well as will definitely place ourselves in the part of global supply chain. So this was the basic insight which came out from ma'am's deliberation. So many insights were there. If I start reiterating things, as we are having lack of time, I can not repeat all those points, but majority of the parts were handled very beautifully, ma'am. Means many major parts were coming right from that your deliberation. So I have so many writings for your, like our global positioning is important, innovation, entrepreneurship, startup is also going to help. Financial investor is lacking. So many insights were there. We are really thankful to you to listen to your valuable insights. Thank you so much for giving this valuable insight, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Next, Dr. Rakesh Paras Singh, sir, Chairman and Dean, Institute of Supply Chain Management, Demand Planning and SCMP Pro Knowledge, Mumbai. Sir, as I have already told you, you started your deliberation with supply chain integration, and in beginning, it was a supply chain shock, and we were thinking that how this supply chain shock is going to impact our basic GDP. And how we are going to integrate this downfall from supply chain part, and we can integrate it with the GDP. We were already looking forward to enhance those things. But the major problem which you have discussed, like no supply chain mapping is there, due to which people are struggling. Different production centers are there, economic disruption is there, organizations are not agile, demand supply mismatch is there, supply tier 1, tier 2, there are several tier of supply chains are there, but unfortunately they are not integrated with each other. So these were the some challenges which we are facing at this point of time. But you have given a basic solution by keeping ourselves efficient, granular, agile, and responsive. And in dealing these problems, we are going to integrate technology through efficient manner, granular manner, agile manner, and responsive manner. Then we are definitely going to handle this situation. We'll definitely come out as a big player in terms of supply chain management. So the insight which from any particular academicians, you can expect all these detailed discussions. We are really thankful to you for discussing all these basic details and bringing this in front of the entire forum. Thank you so much, sir, for your valuable discussion and insight being given to us. Third, Sri Manoj Kumar Dubey, sir. So far we had discussed from academician point of view, and now Manoj Kumar Dubey, sir, Director Finance, Container Corporation of India Limited, New Delhi, has taken this particular thing forward and given practical example. Why people are able to handle things in this pandemic situation, people are not able to see any changes. We are getting everything smoothly because many people are working from behind, and these people are basically contributing significantly. So being part of the government organization, then also the organization is taking care of technology integration as well as they are taking things right in perspective in terms of technology integration. Sir has said, like, even new innovation is taking place. If so many innovation are taking place, if you are very much able to infuse those innovation and try to integrate with the current existing system, will definitely be able to integrate things and will be able to give supply chain solutions holistically. The best part was, sir suggested, like, every stakeholder has to contribute in the same way, because if one stakeholder is contributing, if another stakeholder is not contributing the same way, your innovation and technology is not going to be contributed to the significant level. So it was an invaluable suggestion, sir, and you have taken all those practical examples, and I'm really thankful for organization which is contributing significantly for the entire supply chain to be remain robust during this pandemic situation. We are really thankful to you for the entire things bringing in this particular forum, sir. Last but not the least,
pleasure to be here.
Sir, privilege, sir. Last, Sri Rajneesh Singh, sir, Senior Vice President and Chief Corporate Affairs, Flipkart Group, Bangalore, Karnataka, India. Sir has started with giving a practical example of Mango, Karnataka laborers, and how these have these esteemed organization has able to sort out the laborers problem related to the Mango. But sir gave so many challenges are there, and one by one sir has jotted down, like, first, geographic mismatch of demand is there, migrant problem is there, unemployment issues will remain there in this pandemic situation, social distancing, and we are still grappling with the problem. It is still happening, and we are into the mid of this particular problem. But sir has suggested, like, 3 ways to come out of these solutions. This problem is 3 ways are there. First one is tracing, scaling up tracing, then decision making through data, and how digitalization can help in this pandemic situation. And again, you have scaled it up, like scaling up the supply chain solutions, data finding about demand so that we can integrate supply chain on the basis of demand and prevent disruption. Again, you are going to prevent disruption. You are going to work on your government approvals, and you are going to utilize 3 different platforms of tracing, data, and digitalization. So I think the insight which is being deciphered by you at this point of time was commendable, sir. We are not going to see, because you people are practitioners, and the way you people have taken this subject matter and brought this up into the platform was commendable, sir. We are really having privilege to have you as a panelist member. So we are really thankful to all our esteemed panel member for contributing significantly. Then comes our own leadership, Executive Secretary Sir, Dr. MP Singh Sir, for providing us all the supports to organize this. Then our parent, our father figure, Dr. Pinaknath Jha Sir, Director Sir, who has contributed significantly at the beginning of this particular webinar and put a basic theme of the entire webinar and contributed significantly. We are really thankful to you for all this valuable suggestions, sir. Then our registrar, sir, Honorable Registrar, sir, Mr. Sanjay Gupta, who has supported in all the way possible. And Dr. Amitabh Pandey, sir, who has contributed significantly in bringing up this question answer session on the platform. You have handled it very well. But one more thing I would also love to add, like all the infrastructure and all the backend support was being deciphered by sir, who usually contribute significantly in this part of work. So we are really thankful to you for this also, sir. Then Mr. Viresh Tripathi, sir. Sir, means I don't have words to express my gratitude and thankfulness. Due to your hard effort, this particular webinar has come into existence. All the pain and all the work behind managing all the esteemed panel members and the entire infrastructure and backend support was being created by you. It was all your effort due to which this webinar has happened. So we are really thankful to you for your personal contribution as a coordinator for this entire webinar. Thank you so much for contributing it. And last but not the least, entire participants who have come across the country, and many faculty members, senior faculty members are there from our own organization as well as from other organizations. We are really thankful to you for contributing, participating in this particular platform. Keep on participating in this kind of activities, because we are keep on organizing this kind of webinars in future too. We are really thankful to you for all your contribution being made so far. Thank you so much and have a nice day. Over to Viresh sir.
Thank you so much, sir. And last but not least, Kartikeya sir, for officially presenting the vote of thanks. I would like to add, I would also thank the Director General for School of Management Sciences, Lucknow, Dr. B.R. Singh. Sir has also was there with us since the beginning of this program, and he's still here in the panel. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you very much for participating. All the participants, all the senior faculty members, and most importantly, Amitabh sir and Kartikeya sir, who as a backbone were there to help me in the coordination aspects of all this webinar. Thank you so much, sir. And thank you to all my distinguished speakers. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Rakesh,
Thanks,
sir.
everyone.
Thank you, Rajneesh, sir. Thank you, Manoj, sir. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Thanks, everyone.
Congratulations to you as well to the entire team of the HiSMART. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.